Well, the Sadducees and Pharisees, the chief priests and teachers of the law, decided that Jesus was their ultimate enemy, that he needed to be disposed of. He needed to be taken out because he'd become popular and his teaching made sense. Well, the Pharisees and Sadducees were of two very different theological persuasions, but they did come together in a form of commonality in that they hated Jesus. We're in Matthew chapter 22, pardon me, and in last time we looked at the Pharisees trying to hook Jesus with a quite political question. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar? And Jesus just shut them right down. In fact, Matthew records in verse 22, when they heard this, they were amazed, so they left him and went away. What do we do with that? But in verse 23, that same day, the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him with a question. Now, I am no authority on ancient religious sects, but I've read the Gospels enough and studied a little to know that the Sadducees, I don't understand how they came to this conclusion that there is no resurrection from the dead, there's no afterlife, there is nothing supernatural. They would have had to explain everything in terms of naturalistic events. Oh, well, that was going to happen anyway, or maybe they ate something, to me, it takes less faith for me to believe that there is supernatural, that miracles do happen, that there is an afterlife. But that's just me. Anyway, they came to Jesus with a question. Verse 24, Teacher, they said, because now they were appealing to the highest religious authority for the Jew. That would have been Moses. And when they say Moses, they're talking about the law. Moses told us that if a man dies without having children, his brother must marry the widow and have children for him. What's that about? Well, one thing that it's about is the value of having children in Hebrew culture, ancient Hebrew culture. You do realize that up until the Industrial Revolution, even in America, it was almost imperative that people had children, and lots of them. Okay, here's why. You probably already know this. Because America was mainly agricultural at that time. We're talking pre-industrial revolution, okay, pre-factory. Cities were cities, but they didn't sprawl yet. You needed people to work the farm. And if they're your kids, you didn't have to pay them. It was pragmatic. And to some degree, that's the truth for the ancient Hebrew. But here's a big difference. When the Hebrew had a large family, this was a demonstration of God's favor. God favored you with many children. David in the Psalms says, children are like arrows. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full. The point is, lots of children. This was desirable in ancient Hebrew culture. Okay, verse 25. Now, there were 7 brothers among us. The first one married and died, and since he had no children, he left his wife to his brother. Ooh, that's kind of, it doesn't quite make sense at all to us in our American Western mindset. I don't leave my wife to someone. She's not an item. She's not chattel. If she wants to remarry, I hope she does, but I'm not picking her spouse out for her. But that's not how it worked in ancient Hebrew culture. Verse 26, the same thing happened to the second and third brother, right on down to the 7th. It was one unlucky family. Finally, the woman died. Now, then at the resurrection, and remember, they don't believe in the resurrection. At the resurrection, whose wife will she be of the 7, since all of them were married to her? Okay, number one, I find it a little hard to believe that they actually knew a man who had a family of men who had 7 times died, each one married to the same woman. I mean, come on. I suppose it could have happened, but I don't. That's a little transparent as a ploy in my mind. Okay, verse 29, Jesus replied, "You're in error because you don't know the scriptures or the power of God." Ooh. So he didn't try to he didn't try to soften it or say something like, well, and there's another way to look at it, this, or whatever. But no, he just comes out pretty much guns blazing. You don't know the scripture or the power of God. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. Pause. Some people have looked at this and said, okay, so when you die, you become an angel. That's not what Jesus said. You become like an angel in heaven, but you don't become an angel. What are you like? Well, angels don't marry. There's not marriage among angels. In that way, we'll be like angels. And there could be other ways, but about the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what God said to you? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. This is back when he was kind of confronting Moses in the burning bush. And then Jesus goes on, he is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So, if I'm a Pharisee, a Sadducee, what am I going to do with that? I'm probably just going to keep my mouth closed and look down and walk away. Well, verse 33, when the crowd heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. I just think one of the things about Jesus is when people listen to him without an agenda, his teaching just made so much sense. And they were astonished at his teaching. Now, part of the reason they were astonished at his teaching, I think, had to do with the fact that he didn't back down from hard questions. I think the crowd could have seen through this just like you and I saw through it. They kept listening and they were astonished, surely partly because Jesus had just gone right for the heart. The second thing is astonished because he made such great sense. Well, that suggests to me that not a lot of the standard teachers of the law made great sense. Just a thought. And let's move forward. Verse 34, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. It comes from Deuteronomy chapter 6. And actually, in a Jewish home, this was quoted daily. Verse 39, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. What are you going to say to that? Well, those can't be they were clearly, if you think it through, if you have any background, and if you think in any kind of logical terms, that's a slam dunk. The Pharisees thought, well, we'll catch him. The Sadducees, they failed. They could have done better, I think, but, that's the Sadducees for you. So let's get together. This will nail him. I know it will. What's the greatest commandment? Oh, shoot. He hit the nail right square on the head. So let's talk about this greatest commandment. The commandment that all the law and the prophets hang on. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your mind and your strength. I know this is trite to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. This greatest of all the commands did not say, obey the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. It said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. To me, it just makes sense that if I love him with all that I am, I will obey him. When you love someone, you want to do what they ask. And when we love God with all our being, heart, this was the seat in Jewish thought, the seat of your will, your emotion. This was the seat of, love came from the heart, okay? Think about this, it's the deepest in your body. And for the Hebrews, they just had crude medicine, and that's why they picked the heart to represent that. Heart and soul. I'm not sure I know what the soul is, other than my soul is the essence of me. It's the part of me that will live on forever. And I think it's the part of me where God does his business with me, is in my soul. Mind. Don't leave your mind out. Your mind has to be engaged in this. And strength. Don't talk about this much in modern churches because we just don't want to bother with an icky idea that I need to steward my body, my physical health, what I do, what goes into it, where I take it. Those pieces of us are the summary: heart, soul, mind, strength. I want to love God with all of me. And when I do, it makes possible the second greatest command, to love my neighbor as I love myself. There's a whole lot I'd like to say about that, and I can't do it in 10 seconds. So I'm going to shut her down for today, and tomorrow I'll come back to it. I'll see you then on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.